Alright guys, welcome to Formula 1 news. Drama continues here with regard to the FIA. Formula 1's race director Niels Wittich has just been fired by the governing body of the sport, and again, remarkable circumstances. So many key individuals at the FIA have left or been fired over the last few months. What is going on this one? Because rumours emerging that a bad relationship between Wittich and the president, of course, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, resulted in this situation. But Wittich has now said, hey, I didn't step down, I was effectively fired, although the FIA's initial announcement on this said the precise opposite. What is going on behind the scenes in F1? Because it's very rare a race director is fired mid-season, to say the very least. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We have plenty to get into today as always. First of all, starting with this. This is the only real image that's been revealed so far of what is going to be a launch party for Formula 1 happening at the O2 in London on, I believe it's going to be the 18th of February. So I think this was rumoured a little while ago. Now it's happening. So tickets go on sale Friday or Thursday for Amex card holders. 10 teams, 20 drivers, one massive launch. So all the teams, all the drivers, all the team principals are going to be there in London for this day. Now, this is pretty much just before the season begins. I think the intention here is to, monetize, firstly, but also just to some degree, level up the experience around the launch part of the season. We know that the teams do their reveals. Often they are just livery reveals leading up to the season, and the teams this year will do seemingly all of those on the same day. So the 18th of Feb, all the teams are going to drive their cars out, presumably, in front of a crowd here at the O2. And that's probably going to be the first time that we get to see the liveries on these machines. How many of the teams will actually drive the real car for the new season? We know that Red Bull and other teams, for example, have had a history of just showing off last year's car with the new livery, so nobody sees any of their special details for the upcoming season. Some teams will just reveal the new car straight up. So maybe there's going to be a mix here. I'm sure there's going to be music, and it's going to be a bit of an event and a bit of a song and dance. That's what F1's about nowadays, the glitz and the glam. And will this be an entertaining event to watch from home? Maybe. Will it be good to be there in person? Probably. We will see on this one, but kind of exciting stuff. It's a new idea for Formula 1 and Liberty Media, a launch event for the season. And I guess it does kind of make sense because the F1 team's going to do what they want, don't they? They just say, oh, we're going to reveal a livery on this day, and then they reveal it, and that's it. Whereas F1 saying, okay, we're going to do everything together at the same time, get everyone in the same venue, and it's going to kind of be banging, right? I mean, obviously, there's so many driver lineup changes next year, as Newtonia mentions in the replies. Hamilton's, I wouldn't necessarily say his first appearance as a Ferrari man, but obviously that's going to be kind of exciting. More to say on that in a second. Before we get there, let's talk Alpine, because they have made it official as of today. They will be using Mercedes power from 2026 and beyond. It's a bit of a disaster, the Alpine situation, and they've confirmed this until at least 2030. So next year's going to be Renault's final year. We knew a while ago they were shutting down their engine project, despite the fact that apparently Renault's work on the 2026 engines are actually looking really rather promising. And there's been lots of talk from Ferrari that they're going to actually hire a load of the Renault guys because they were doing great work for 26. So, that's another topic. Of course, the main theory is that Alpine might be gearing up for a sale over the next couple of years, the way that they've handled this whole situation. But regardless, they are going to be Mercedes powered and gearboxed from 2026 and beyond. This could be a bit of a masterstroke in the sense that, will Mercedes engine be the best? Possibly. Will it be very reliable? Probably, compared to the Renault, let's be real. But it doesn't smell like a French Renault works team when they're using Mercedes engines. It just doesn't quite add up right. The last time this happened was when they were competing under Lotus, right, several years ago. And but now they're meant to be the full customer team again. And that's not exactly how this one really feels. Speaking of Mercedes, Bottas is seemingly going to become a reserve driver for Mercedes. That seems to be the most likely option at the moment, and therefore looking to get back on the grid into the future. Hamilton was given some thoughts as well. We know that, of course, Toto Wolff's been getting into some drama over the last couple of days on the whole Hamilton stuff. But Hamilton says, look, every bit of input I put in now, along with George's, for example, is contributing to the development forwards. That's the job. That's what I'm paid for, because Obviously, the team has not been putting Hamilton in all of those meetings, right? So George will be in the meetings about next year's car and stuff. Hamilton won't be. That's just how it is. But obviously, the other way around, Hamilton is still getting paid to help the team out as much as possible. And as Hamilton says, like, I'm not holding anything back from any class sessions. At the end of the day, this is the team that I've been successful with for many, many years, and I want the team to continue to have success. That's just how I'm wired. That's how I am. Maybe other people will do a different thing. So, kind of commendable if what he says is actually true, that he's still doing his most that he can to try and help the team work. But the reality is, whatever Hamilton or George says, it doesn't really seem to matter. The team can't seem to find a way to get on top of all the problems they've had. There was a rumour today as well, according to Sky Sports Italy, so Italian press, grain of salt, but it is interesting, that Hamilton's first day with Ferrari has been set in stone. The date that he will turn up to Maranello for the first time and work with the team, that date has apparently been decided, but it's an absolute secret that, is probably going to become public before it happens, knowing the way that secrets work in Italy. But now this second part is very interesting indeed, and it was further talked about as well, that Hamilton will be given the privilege of staying in Enzo Ferrari's house in Fiorano. Now, the only driver ever who has had the privilege of staying here as their, residences, I suppose, while working with Ferrari is Michael Schumacher. And since Schumacher, no other driver has had that privilege. So I think that's quite telling, isn't it? The way that Ferrari are thinking about Hamilton and holding him in that high of a regard, that he's, getting treatment that nobody has ever received outside of Michael Schumacher for Ferrari. So, Hamilton will stay whenever he's in Fiorano at Enzo Ferrari's house. So he won't be seen much around Maranello. So, interesting to hear, but also pretty fascinating if that turns out to be true. So, of course, rumours emerging about that stuff as well. There was a further update as well from the FIA, and we're going to get into them in detail here in a second, on the Red Bull stuff. So, you guys remember when it turned out Red Bull could adjust their front bib ride height from inside the car, inside the footwell, basically. There was that was where the switch was that would change the ride height. Now, all the other teams have it differently, and Zach Brown said, hey, well, why have they got their tool to change the ride height there, where it's kind of obscure and potentially could be changed without the knowing watchful eye of the FIA finding out about it? McLaren were heavily implying that Red Bull had been using this methodology to cheat, basically, to change the ride height between quali and the race. Now, Red Bull, of course, vehemently denied this, but it seemed to me that it was all just the classic war that happens when it comes to cheating. Red Bull call out McLaren for using their flexible rear wing, certainly in Baku, then they ban it. McLaren then come back and say, all right, well, Red Bull have been doing this, Red Bull have been doing that. Now Red Bull are coming back and saying, oh, McLaren are burning water in the tyres and all this stuff, right? All sorts of drama going on. But the FIA, to their credit, assuming this is true, have gone to some lengths to figure out whether they've done this or not. They actually went to visit the team in Milton Keynes. And I always find these visits a little bit controversial, just because, for you guys, I'm pretty sure this is still the case this year. Maybe I think it changes next year, but if you are getting visited as a team, you get informed in advance. So the FIA will say, hey, we're going to come and check that you're following the rules and we're going to arrive on this date. And it's like, Ofsted inspections for schools or whatever, right? Oh my God, Ofsted are coming in. We've got to make sure we're on tip-top shape today. Whereas if the FIA just rocked up whenever they pleased and started, going through the drawers, then they might find different things, right? I mean, it's like, oh, the FIA is coming on this date. Let's make sure that information, that paperwork is discreetly hidden away. And I'm sure that this happens to some degree, like it must do. It's just human nature, I think. So I believe next year, the FIA, I think they're changing this, is able just to rock up whenever they please. And that is obviously better for the teams actually following the rules, right, if you see what I'm saying. But the FIA turned up to the Milton Keynes factory last week to investigate the front bib adjuster situation. They looked at the car, they looked at design drawings, they looked at data, and they're satisfied that Red Bull didn't use it for that purpose. But so it's always interesting, because how could you tell in hindsight, I guess, is the question. The theory was that because it was a accessible from inside the car. It was possible that a mechanic could have changed it without maybe other people knowing, whereas other teams it would have been more obvious if they'd have done so. But look, the FIA looked into it. They're confident nothing is really going on there, and maybe we're going to get the same conclusion to the whole injecting water into the tyres idea that Red Bull have come up with regarding McLaren. So yeah, fair play if the FIA have actually investigated this, taken it pretty seriously, and come up with a reasonable conclusion. And they say they found no evidence that Red Bull ever used the adjuster outside of parc fermé regulations, so the matter is now fully closed after all the drama a few weeks ago. Now, the drama does not end there. Let's talk Aston Martin. Their car is in shambles compared to where they were at the start of 2023. They were the surprise package of 2023. They put together a great car. Fernando had 8, 9 podiums that year, something remarkable. Even podiumed at the end of the season in Brazil, famously, when they were pretty strong that weekend. This year, it started pretty bad, and it's just got worse, really. They bring upgrades that don't work. And we know that Lawrence Stroll is not going to be so happy about that. He has pumped lots of investment into this team. Now, of course, it must be said, this year is still before the time that they're expected to take an improvement. Their sim is now basically up and running. Mike Crack talked about it being like something out of Star Wars. Their factory is there, their wind tunnel, everything that they need to succeed, and Adrian Newey, obviously, and even, what's the guy's name? Andy Cowell, former Mercedes power unit guy, he's joining as well. So, Aston have every tool in the book to be a championship contender from 2026 and beyond. Hypothetically, I think there's no denying on paper they've got the pieces in place to achieve that. But of course, they've got to do it. And certainly Lawrence Stroll will expect and have expected that they would have done more and achieved more over the last couple of years than they actually have. I mean, last year they were struggling with upgrades not working. This year it's the same story again. So someone had to take the fall for that, and it's been confirmed as of today that Dan Fallows, former Red Bull man who came to the team, and there was all that green bull drama a couple of years ago when they introduced a similar sidepod to the Red Bull on the AMR 22B, I think it was called. But yeah, Dan Fallows is gone, stepping down from the role. Basically, he's been fired, isn't he? Let's be honest. And he's the fall guy for what has been a terrible few months. But yes, he's no longer going to be the technical director. And I think this was maybe inevitable with the arrival of Adrian Newey into the team. Newey's going to come in as the super consultant. I don't even know what they call him again, technically his job title, but he's pretty much coming in as the top dog on the engineering partner side. I think they called him a partner, technical partner or something, is Adrian Newey. But he's coming in, and he is, if the guy is who he's working with, he isn't happy with them or doesn't feel like they are best positioned to succeed, he's going to get them out the door. Now, it's not necessarily like Newey made this decision. Seems like the team might have made this decision, and it's possible that Dan Fallows stays within the organisation to some degree so that when Adrian Newey does come in and does start work, he can say, okay, I want this guy here, this guy here, this guy here, and we're going to go from there. But definitely for Aston Martin, with their lack of success recently, they have, called for serious change, and that now is being delivered. So Bob Bell, exec director, is coming in and filling in for Dan Fallows on a temporary basis here. So big stories today, and Aston Martin making serious changes is definitely one of them. But this, I would say, is bigger because the FIA, we know that there's so much drama with the president, Ben Sulayem, with the relationship with Formula One, the relationship with the fans, with the drivers, with the teams, and all this type of stuff. Niels Wittich has been the race director. Of course, it was Michael Massey, who was fired after 2021, certainly after the events of Abu Dhabi. Niels Wittich came in. I think he was kind of joint top dog. Now he's been effectively the top dog as the race director in Formula One. It's a big role. It's a big job. And, I'm not saying he's done the best job, and we know that the race direction is still not great. The stewarding definitely leaves something to be desired. And we know that there are inconsistencies in the ruling. We talk about it all the time. How much of that belongs at the feet of Wittich himself? Are there other factors in play? Multiple different stewards on certain weekends certainly doesn't help, and various other factors and rulings as to why we get the inconsistent decisions that we seem to. But look, Wittich has been in charge now for some time, and today it was confirmed by the FIA that Wittich is gone. They said the following: the FIA can confirm that Wittich has stepped down. So that is crucial wording, of course, because stepped down implies he decided to leave. And, well, let's see about that. From his position as F1 race director to pursue new opportunities. And that doubles down. It's like, yeah, he's decided to leave to explore something else. Now, this never adds up when we have 3 races to go in a season. Like, okay, you've been the race director now for a couple of years in Formula 1. You're going to leave 3 races from the end to go and do something else? Why? Unless you've got some incredible opportunity that you have to say yes to literally right this second, why in the world would you ever do that? So that never added. As soon as you read this, you're like, okay, something's fishy going on here. And then they say, Niels had fulfilled his numerous responsibilities as race director with professionalism and dedication. We thank him for his commitment and wish him the best for the future. So possibly written by ChatGPT. So Rui Marquez, who is the top guy in F2 and F3, race direction over there, he's going to come in as the new race director going forwards. So it's like, oh, okay, well, drama, certainly, and maybe Vitic not getting along so well with the top dog, Ben Sulayem, obviously, the actual president of the FIA, and we know that there's been many senior personnel who have stepped down from the FIA simply because they don't get along with the president over there and they just don't believe he's doing a great job for the sport in general. And there have been so many employees that have just left the FIA, and that organisation does seem to be in shambles to some degree, right? I mean, the thing is, Ben Sulayem isn't particularly well liked by the fans, by the drivers, by the, even his own employees. It doesn't seem like it, but he is seemingly well liked enough by the committee that votes him onto that position. And of course, at the end of the day, that is what really matters, right? So this is what was said, though, in the article. So this is what Andrew Benson put out as soon as this happens, that he's left with immediate effect. And of course, it's saying it's a surprise move. FIA staff were told earlier on Tuesday, BBC Sport has been told. So this is the statement that they made. But then Benson says this: the decision was not widely expected within F1, although some insiders had heard Vidic would be replaced at the end of the season. A senior source said that Vidic, as a result of his relationship with FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem, had left earlier than expected. So that's interesting, isn't it? That effectively implies that Vidic was not a big fan of Ben Sulayem, and therefore that, let's say, friction between the president and the F1 race director resulted in his earlier quitting. And we know that sporting director Nielsen quit in December. Leading engineer Tim Goss left his role as single-seater director. Natalie Robin left her role as chief executive officer. Like, there have been so many basically just people leaving the organisation recently. But then things got even more dramatic because Christian Menathir says that no, he did not step down from his position as race director, he was just fired. So yeah, that's what they come out with. He was just fired and was told so today. Very strange things happening 3 races before the end of the season. So really fascinating stuff. And then Vitic was actually asked about this. What I don't understand about the FIA is, like, how can you come out and say, oh, he stepped down to pursue new opportunities, when apparently that was just blatantly false, and people are going to ask Niels about it, and he's going to say, I didn't leave, right? So he was asked about this, and obviously it was stated as resignation, and apparently he has just said to the media, like, I didn't resign, they fired me, basically. So why? I mean, was he doing the best job? Have I been heavily critical of decisions that him and his stewards have made over certainly the last several rounds of Formula 1? Absolutely. But just the circumstances around this are still remarkable. We've got 3 rounds to go until the end of the season, and we've got a race director fired. Maybe because he didn't get along with the president, maybe because of other reasons, underperformance or whatever you want to say. But the circumstances are still remarkable and don't really paint anyone involved, certainly from the FIA, in an especially good light at all. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Just one final thing I thought was interesting here from Kimi Antonelli, who, well, he's going to be in the Mercedes, of course, next year alongside George Russell. We know that he famously had that crash in Monza when he came out and was saying purple sectors, purple sectors, purple sectors, and then binsed in the wall of the Parabolica. And it was a tricky moment, right? Because many were saying, young kid, you've stuck him in the car way too early, this is going to backfire on Mercedes. Maybe it will. I personally doubt it. My feeling is very much one of optimism towards Antonelli and his future in the sport. But I totally get why some were saying, this could ruin him. Putting him in a car that early, this crash in front of a home crowd at Monza as an Italian driver could ruin him. And look, maybe it's had an effect, but Antonelli says, no, though that crash, it may be stronger as, mentally stronger to deal with some of these situations. And if that's true, what Antonelli implies on this one, I think, this guy definitely has a bright future ahead. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.